In this video, we're going to see if we can fix everything that's wrong with this old girl. So sit back and let's dig on in. Hopefully you saw and enjoyed my part 1 video, which I'll put a link to here if you haven't. But basically we took this tractor that had a partially seized engine, went through the clutch and all sorts of things, and we were able to get this thing to start, run, and drive on its own in the last video. But we discovered a whole bunch of things that were wrong with it. So in this video, we're going to try to fix everything, okay? So what we're going to do first here is we're going to make ourselves a list of things we already know we need to do. So there's 3 main things, right? So we've got the cooling, system. We've got the charging system. We've got the clutch. Then we've got a few unknowns that we haven't messed with. Hydraulics. And the rest of the fluids. So I left space in here because as we take things apart, we're going to list parts that we need to buy. That way we can keep track of everything. So things we do know that we're going to need in the cooling system already is the radiator. We're going to need the upper water pipe. And flange. What else? I think that's it for that so far. Charging system, well, we're going to either need to rebuild the Jenny, or switch it to an alternator. And if it's a Jenny, we'd also need a voltage regulator. Put a big old fat question mark by these until we figure out if that's what we're going to do or not. Let's see, the clutch. We're going to take that apart and we'll list all the parts we need there. We know we're going to need some discs and things like that, but we'll see what else we got. So I think the first thing I want to tackle, since we'll do this one last because that one should be the easiest. We're going to do this one second because it's going to be quite a bit of disassembly, but I think I want to tackle the clutch right away. Whoop, the clutch right away. So I'm going to put my cap back on here, but if you remember from my first video, well, I'll walk you over here and we'll show you the issue. I want to pull it apart. The clutch was partially seized, so the dogs on the back are really rusty, so I want to get those taken off and cleaned up really good. One of the springs in here is broken, and someone put in like a hodgepodge one that's not quite right, and our discs are very well worn, so we got to get this clutch off. But the problem is that we realize somebody else is working on the clutch. The clutch pulley hits the tire, so you can't pull it off all the way. And you can see someone was trying to slide the wheel out so you get the clutch pulley off, but I'm going to try something different. I think what I'm going to try to do is jack up the tractor, put blocks beside the wheel, of course, and deflate this tire and take a ratchet strap and wrap it around here and ratchet, try to compress the tire down, and I should be able to get that clutch out. So that's what we're going to try here. So let me get myself set up and we will get ready to do that. So 1 second. All right, here you go. I showed you how to disassemble the clutch in the last video, but I'm going to go ahead and show you again in this video, just for repetition's sake and for those of you who haven't seen this before. So first thing I'm going to do is I only have 1 cotter pin in here right now, so I took out my cotter pin. I'm going to set that off to the side here. I'm going to take off these 3 bolts. These are the bolts or the nuts rather, that are used to tighten the clutch. And as I'm taking this stuff apart, I'm going to lay it down in the order in which I took it apart, just so I know how it all goes back together, and that sort of thing. So there's spring tension on this, so that's why I'm trying to take it off like in increments so that it comes off evenly so nothing binds up, but pretty much have all the spring tension off now, so I can just go ahead and take these nuts off. All right, so go ahead and set these nuts up here. So I know these nuts need to be replaced. They seem quite worn. Same with those bolts. We're going to replace those as well. Come on. Okay, now this should slide right off. Okay, I don't know that, oh, there's the one spring I was talking about. See, these hopefully you can see that these two springs are identical. This one is not. So someone tried to hodgepodge a spring together in here, so we're going to replace all that. There is a clutch disc in here. You can see it's pretty well wore out. So we'll replace that. Okay, lay this stuff down here in order. Oop, I gotta run and get my impact and my big sockets here. Let me go do that quick and I will I'll come right back. Okay, we're back. Actually, before I take that bolt off, this guy can come off, so we'll lay it down in here. And then this guy can come back off. You can see we're almost down to the rivets here, so this guy will need to be replaced. Now we can take off our nut there. I've had this apart multiple times now, so it's coming apart pretty easy. So we'll set that nut to the side there. Okay, now comes the fun part. Okay, so this is the crankshaft here, end of the crankshaft, and that's a tapered spline. So this is on here real tight. So you don't need a puller. All you need are some 1/2-inch bolts. Just put it in here like this. I actually have some shorter ones I want to try first. See if those actually work out better. But see, there's a notch here, there's a notch up here. So what you do is fit a 1/2-inch bolt in there perfectly. Yeah, I think I'm going to use the longer ones. That looks like they're going to work better. Okay, anyways, sit in here, and you're supposed to use square-headed nuts, but I don't have any, so these will work just fine. But you thread the nut on there just to the point where you can't quite, or where you can like barely fit it in there to help hold it tight. Okay, and now you can take a ratchet and a socket and tighten on that, and it'll act as a puller and it'll push in and pop that off. So we'll show you how that works in a second here. Let me get the other side set in place. Doesn't take much since I've had this off before. A little bit too tight. A little bit of a finesse game here. There we go. Okay, now we're going to take our ratchet. Where we're going to put it. Oh, gotta run. Oh, there it is. Okay. So again, those are 1/2-inch bolts. So so you need a 3/4 inch socket. Okay. All right. So since these are not square-headed bolts, they're square-headed nuts, so regular. You may have to hold this until you get some tension on it. Yep. See, that one fell out. So I'm holding this one here. Got that one tight. Now we'll do the other one. Trying to do this so you can all see here, so it's a little bit difficult. Gotta be kind of a contortionist. Come on. Okay. So now we just gotta ease it out. Just go a couple cranks each side and this thing should start sliding its way out. It's going to be a little bit easier If I use an extension, probably here. Where'd my extension go? There it is. Oh, I'm not hitting my hand on the clutch pulley. All right. Again, I've had this on and off, so it should pop itself off here pretty quick. Oh, there it went. See? Just like that. No big deal. Now, I have heard that if some of these have been on there for a long time, they get really stuck, so you may have to hit it with some penetrant, some heat and stuff like that, but usually it pops off, and I guess worst case scenario is you break off some ears in here, you got to replace this thing, but came off nice and good for us. Now, something to note. There is a timing mark on this. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a V right here, and there's a V on that spline on the crankshaft. You need those lined up. You can see there's a big old weight on here. That's the intended purpose on that is for a counterbalance from the crank, so that is very important when we put that back together. We'll revisit that once we put it back together, but okay, here we are. So I've got almost everything apart. Now, yep, this needs to come off too. So if you saw my first video, you saw me put this back together, and I did make a mistake here. It looks like someone was trying to work this bearing out. That bearing is supposed to be in there farther, and this cap is supposed to be pounded in there as well. So we'll have to do that when we reassemble. So I know people are going to scold me in my first video, but that's what I found out later on. So now we need to take this guy apart. In order to slide this out, there's a big fork in here that holds on the gear here. So I need to actually need to go grab a pliers. And we'll get that, and I will bring right back. All right, here we go. So what we have to do is take off some portion of this linkage so that this can detach from the linkage. So find the path of least resistance. There's several pins here. I've already had this pin out, so that's the one I'm going to take out. I'm just going to grab a pliers and pluck that out there. There we go. Now the linkage is loose. Okay, so now there's just 4 bolts that hold this bad boy on. I'm going to put my pin in here so I don't lose it. And a 9/16" wrench or ratchet and socket, and there's 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. I'm going to start with the lower ones. Okay, one there. Be a good idea to clean these up really good once I take them out here, hit them with some degreaser and stuff to get all the soot off of there so they go in and out nice and easy. All right, so then there's one back here that you might need to jostle this a little bit to get to. There we go. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. Again, I've had this apart, you saw in the first video, so it's going to come apart pretty easy. Okay, and one more here, and this bad boy will slide right off. Whoop, what's going on with my ratchet here? There we go. Thought the old Craftsman was giving up on me after about 30 years. Come on. Okay, now that bolt is ready to come out. And this guy will just slide right out. There you go. I mentioned in the first video that it's a good idea to take a look at how thick and thin this is. We're about 1/4 inch all the way around there, which is pretty good. I think when they're new, they're like 3/8 of an inch, so this one does have some wear, but not too much. Guys have reported that these have been like paper thin from wear. I'm gonna take them apart, so it's just something to be aware of. All right, we'll set that off to the side here. Now, clutch pulley would be ready to come out, but you can see we hit the tire here. So we can't quite get enough clearance. So what I am gonna do is the method I mentioned before is deflate this tire, jack it up, and try to crank on it with a ratchet strap, see if I can't get that bad boy to suck in enough for me to get that out. So I'm gonna give that a try. Let me get myself set up and I'll bring you back. All right, let's see if this is gonna work. I've got the tire, I jacked up the rear end, put a jack stand under it. I got chocks under the other side of the wheel, pulled the valve core, and I've got my ratchet strap on here tight, so let's see if we can't crush this tire down enough to get that pulley off. Oh, I'm gonna have to straighten out my ratchet strap, get it more towards the middle. I can see that already. Let me reposition and I'll bring you back. Bummer. All right, let's try that again. Take two. Might be enough. Let's see. Look at that. Look at that. See? A little bit of ingenuity is all you need. All right, let's take that pulley over to the bench and we will bring you back. All right, we got the whole thing on the bench here. So this guy just needs to be cleaned up. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up at a later date. I think this is okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up and see how that looks. But for sure, I'm gonna need one of these. This guy's in good shape, so we can keep him. I'm gonna need one of these. This guy's in good shape, so I can keep him. And then I'm gonna need one of those. That's actually two of these, one of those. And then this thing should be, yeah, that's in good shape too. Then I'm gonna need the, oops, I lost one of the other springs, but three of those springs. I'm gonna need three of these nuts, or three of these bolts, and then three of those nuts, okay? So let's go ahead and write that down. Here, so we need, so clutch, we need two disc, one, what is this guy? I don't even know what you call this thing. Pressure plate maybe, adjusting plate, I don't know. Tell me what it's actually called. I don't have the parts book in front of me, so I can't quite tell you, but one pressure disc. And then 3 bolt, 3 nut. This bearing does need to be replaced too, so that bearing will be replaced. One. Can you guys read my chicken scratch? I can barely read it. I'm going to flip it over and investigate, but there's a bushing back there too that should probably be replaced as long as I'm doing this. So let me flip that over and take a look at that once. You can see there is a big bushing in here that rides on the crank in there. So I'll probably go ahead and replace that too. Here's what I was talking about with the dogs. You couldn't really see it in my last video because I showed you a little bit, but these were all rusted solid, but I was able to get them loose with some penetrant and a little bit of persuasion. But I'm going to pull all these out and clean them up really good to get the rust off, use some Evapor Rust. So I'm going to pull those out. I'll see what they look like, but I think they're actually going to be okay because I was able to get the clutch to snap in and out. But yeah, I'm going to go get to work on disassembling this stuff, and I will bring you back once we get it all apart. All right, so I got my dogs off and all my pins, and they seem in pretty good shape. Took some persuasion because the pins were inside the dogs and they were like frozen, so they would rotate with the shaft there. So I was able to get that loose with some penetrant and persuasion, right? Not too harsh, but a little bit of gentle persuasion. Since that bearing was already partially out because someone was clearly trying to remove it, I just went in from the back side here and reached down with my pry bar because it's got a taper on it, and I was able to pound that out pretty easily. The right way to do that would be with a puller, but I didn't need to do that in this situation. Also on the back side here was this washer that will need to go back in. So here's some things to look at. So you can see there's a bunch of like holes around here. There's also holes on the back side here. That's for oil to get in, I do believe. So as the engine's turning, there's the big drive gear inside the case there, and it's slinging oil up, and oil drips down in here, and it goes through and it lubricates this bearing. So that's why they say when you are in neutral idling, you want to have your tractor out of gear and your clutch engaged so this spins so that this gets oil. Otherwise, it will not get oil properly, okay? So I'm going to want to go ahead and I want to clean out all these passages and degrease the snot out of this thing to make sure that I get it as clean as possible. That way that thing will oil properly on this bearing. One more thing, I mentioned there's that bushing in there, so I'm going to attempt this. I'm going to try to see if I have the right size seal driver to go in here and drive that seal out that way. So I'm going to go pull out my seal driver kit and see if I have the right size. Then I will turn the camera on and show you how to do that. So give me a second. All right, I think I have the right size seal driver here. So I'm going to I'm going to have to put this up on something to get it to move properly, but I'm going to do this just to see if I can get it to move right now. So I've got it in there. I'm going to give it a few wraps to see if I can get it to budge. Oop, I think it budged. Yeah, it moved definitely here. We'll pull that out, flip that up. Yeah, it moved a little bit there. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down on some 2x4s or something so that I can like span the gap, and then we can knock that thing all the way out. So just give me a second here. All right, let's give this a whirl here. Got my BFH. I put the rag in there just to take up the gap a little bit because this is a really thin bushing, so it's really, really close. It's moving. It's out past the lip now. Yep, here it comes. Bolt's loosening up on there. Out about an 1/8 inch past the end now. Fell off the wood. Now we're at about a 1/4 inch. All right. That's coming. We're 3/8 to a 1/2 inch now. Whoop. Okay. Oh. Okay, now the question is, how do I get it the rest of the way? I'm just about flush the surface here. Yeah, we're over halfway out. I'm gonna get like a socket or something and put it on there. Give me 1 second and I'll bring you back. All right, is this the right way to do this? Nope. Is this the way I'm gonna do it? Yep. So I've got the bigger socket. Give me another couple inches of travel here. So you gotta work with what you got, and this is what I got. Yep, she's moving. We're all the way down to the ground now. I'm gonna have to stack something else up there. Oh, we're close. All right, give me 1 second. All right, I got my 2x4s up on end, so hopefully that's enough to get us through here. Oh, yep, see, yep, she's out. All right, there we go. Hey, you can see it's a split bushing too. Cool. All right, bring it back up on the bench and we'll see what's next. So give me a moment. All right, we've taken off pretty much everything on that clutch we can take off. So really what I got to do is get that thing all cleaned up, hit it with a bunch of degreaser and a little bit of elbow grease to get all the dirt and grime and goo off that thing from 7 years worth of stuff. Updated our list here to add that bushing. So I think, oh, springs. I didn't add the springs. Nope, let me put you down for a second. Sorry about that. All right. Three springs, okay? So I got to order all that stuff. So I'm going to call it a night for tonight, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually get that stuff on order. So hopefully it'll be here by the weekend, but we'll see. Right now, actually, too, I'm going to throw all this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner to get it all cleaned up. Not that, but all the stuff that I think I can keep. So not the bolts, but that cover, that or that seal, that spacer, and then all the dogs to get all the dirt and grime off of there. Then I'm going to throw all those dog pieces inside some Evaporust and see if we can't get all that rust buildup off there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will bring you back the next time I work on this. So stay tuned until then. All right, folks, it's a few days later. I've actually got all my clutch parts ordered, which should be here within the next couple days, which would be great. I also did get a new radiator order with the gaskets to go with it. So first thing what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this bad boy outside and I'm going to pressure wash the snot out of this thing. I bought some degreaser, so I'm going to soak it down really good with degreaser, and then I'm going to pressure wash it, try to get all the goo out of there. Then I'll spray it down with a protectant so that it doesn't rust. And then we're going to come down here and get all this torn apart so we can get that radiator out so that when the new one comes, we can slap it back in here. So that's what we're going to be accomplishing today. So you don't need to watch me pressure wash. I'm going to go ahead and take that outside and do that. Then I'll show you the disassembly process when we come back in. So give me a moment and I'll bring you back. All right, that actually worked pretty good. That degreaser, then with the pressure washer, I was able to get the majority of the buildup off of there. There's just like rust stuff remaining in there. So I'm going to spray it down with this stuff, super slick stuff. It's a good protectant. Just kind of spray it on there. My father-in-law actually used this in Florida on his fishing gear to keep it from getting corroded. It worked pretty good. So we'll just do this to make sure that that water doesn't, you know, rust things up on us and seize things up on us while we're waiting for our parts to come in. I'm going to take you over on the bench here and show you something that I almost forgot about. So 1 second. So my parts I had in the degreaser and the ultrasonic cleaner, they actually turned out really, really clean. So here's what I'm using. It's a, you can't really see it here, but it is a Central Machinery one from Pittsburgh. It's pretty grody in there right now, but all I do is I put in a mixture of 50-50 water and simple green, turn on the heat function as hot as it can go, and let it go about an hour. And pretty much everything comes out nice and clean here. Fumble. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hose this off to get the degreaser off. And I'm going to drop this stuff all in some evaporust overnight to get off some of that rust particles that are on the outside here and see how that turns out. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there, let her marinate overnight, and I'll show you what it looks like tomorrow. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll get to work on the tractor over here. All right, guys, admittedly, I'm not really sure the correct order of operations for taking this stuff apart here. I had it kind of partially apart, not this, but on a B, to get it's my cousin's B, but to get the intake stack off. It was a real pain in the butt because basically all this stuff is connected. Like this is bolted to the gas tank, and then it's bolted to the frame, and it's all bolted together. So farm walls are a lot easier to work on in that scenario, but here's what we're gonna do. So I'm going to start by taking up the nose cone. Looks like there's just 2 bolts up here that should be able to come out. I'm going to see about getting off these side shields here and see how that goes. It looks like there's just 1, 2, 3 bolts here, probably 3 on the other side. I don't know if it's attached to anything up here or not, so we're going to get that nose cone off and then have a look-see. So let me get that nose cone off, and then I'll bring you back once I figure something out. All right, nose cone came off. There were just those 2 on the top. There was supposed to be 1 here in the middle, but that one's been broken off for, looks like decades. So next I took out this guy up here. What I'm using up here, it's called a bolster. I've seen this, other YouTubers use this thing. This thing works awesome. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, so I just decided to try it, and it's great. So it just helps you keep track of your bolts as you're taking stuff apart on here. So I'm laying it out like this. So I know these bolts were here, these bolts were here, and then I'm gonna like work my way down, you know, getting all these other bolts as I'm taking them apart so I can keep track of what bolt went where. So it's pretty slick. All right, next up, I've got some square-headed bolts here, and there is a nut on the back. It feels like there's a square nut on the back. This particular one, a 14mm, actually fits the tightest on there. Yeah, this one down here, same thing, nut on the back. What do we got on the other side? We got, yep, more squares down there, and then a hex up there. So I'm gonna get to working on those, see if I can get those apart, and then I'll bring you back if that, or once we get to that point. So stay tuned. All right, well, I got those off, and we're still not loose yet. So what I'm seeing is right there and right here, there are bolts. There's supposed to be one right there, but that one's already broke off, so someone's tried to get in here before. So 2 more, those look like 1/2 inch down in there. So I'm gonna try to pop those off quick, hit them with some penetrant, and then we'll see if that pulls off this side screen. So 1 second. All right, Yahtzee. Okay, so there actually was 1 more bolt up top here I didn't see. So there could be 4, this one only had 3. So let's just take a peek at the other side real quick and see how many are on that side. Yeah, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3, and we got 4. So I'm going to go ahead and hit those with penetrant, and we'll reproduce the same procedure on that side, and then we'll see if this bad boy comes off. So 1 second. All right, side number 2 is off. And whoo, does it stank in here. There was some mouse nest. Oh yeah, there's a, oh no, that's a leaf. Thought that was a mouse mummy. Yeah, there's apparently mouse nests in here, and it stanks like old mouse nest and ammonia and all kinds of nasty stuff. So I don't know for sure, but pretty sure the shutters on this thing are actually closed. So I'm gonna wanna see if I can get those bad boys open. I've already hit them with penetrant here, and I'm gonna try to like tap on these to see if I can get these things to open up. But I might do that later. I have to work on getting the rest of the sheet metal off so that I can get this radiator out. So let me examine what we got going on here and see what I have to do next. So stay tuned until then. All right, so we did some investigating, and here's where we're at. So I noticed the choke lever right here was bolted onto here, so I unbolted that to get that out of the way. Here's what I'm seeing. The gas tank sits in this pan here, and the sediment bowl is preventing me from just lifting up the gas tank. So that sucks, because it's full of, well, not full of gas, but I got several gallons of gas in there. I got the gas line disconnected, so that would suck to have to empty all that out. And I don't really want to do that in here, because I don't want to make a gassy mess and create a problem. Okay. It looks like the easiest thing to do is going to be able to try to get this bolt loose and out, and this whole thing should lift up, because the front here is pretty much loose. Okay. But the smokestack and the intake stack are preventing me from just like, tipping it up. So this whole thing has to lift basically straight up, okay? The other thing that's in the way here is the steering shaft. You can see it runs all the way down here, and it bolts right here. Well, I discovered I unbolted that. That was just finger tight, basically. So I don't know if that came loose over the years or someone had been in here at one point or what, but I unbolted that, so now I should be able to unscrew the steering. There's a worm gear in there, and that way that can slide back, so I can pick that up. So my challenge here is going to be to try to get that bolt out, but I don't have a wrench big enough to get in there. So I may have to try to come from this side, which means I'll have to take off this governor linkage here, but I don't know if I can do that. Let's hop over to the other side here. I mean, maybe it'll come off. There's a set screw here, and it looks like that does just go up there, so I might be able to get that up and out of the way. So I'm going to work on that next and see if I can't do that, so stay tuned. Okay, boys, it's all coming back to me now. In order to remove the steering shaft, you need to unbolt the cover on the front, which I just did there. Be careful, because there is a bearing in there that's going to want to fall out. Don't lose your gasket. And then here comes the fun part. The shaft can't go this way, it has to go this way. So you have to remove the steering wheel. Okay, whoop, almost fell over there. And the steering wheel, this nut was rusted solid. I haven't tried to open it up yet. I just hit it with some liquid wrench here to try to get it loosened up, but I'm gonna have to hit that with the impact, try to get that nut off, and then probably use a puller to pull the steering wheel back that way, if it'll budge. Otherwise, I'll be getting out the torch and hitting it with some heat too. So I'm gonna get to work on the steering wheel there and see if I can get that off, and then the shaft has to go all the way up front that way to come out. And then you can lift the hood straight up. That's how that needs to be done. Ugh, I knew it was a pain in the butt, but that's what we have to do. All right, let me get to work on that nut and steering wheel, and I'll bring you back. Well, guys, that actually came off really, really easily, almost like someone actually has done this before. Just like it almost seems like everything else in this tractor, somebody else has touched before. But anyways, didn't take much effort for that nut to come off using my impact. I got the my three-jaw puller right there set up on there, and I got it tightened down, and I just gave it a couple cranks, and I was going to go grab the camera, and it popped right off. So it was no big deal. The only other thing to worry about here is focus. There's a woodruff key that you are going to want to pry out of there before you slide everything down through there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that woodruff key pried out, and then we'll pull that shaft out the front. I'll set you up on the tripod, and I'll show you that process. So I'll bring you back when I'm ready to do that. All right, I pulled my case tractor forward, so hopefully I have enough room to get this up. But basically, all you have to do is unscrew it, okay? So going clockwise, and it's starting to come out. Okay. tough. I'm gonna actually, where's my blaster at? Or my liquid wrench. I'm binding up here on the hood and the rustiness, so just gonna hit that with some liquid wrench just to help it slide out a little bit easier. All right. Oh man, I don't want to use a pipe wrench, but I think I might have to. She's tight. Okay. Let's get this bad boy going. Come on. Maybe I need to learn lefty, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Coming out now, yep, there she goes. Yep, it's just a worm gear in there. Might be able to get the rest of my hand now. Once the worm gear teeth are cleared, then you should be able to pull it straight out. Gotta be almost there. Are we there yet? Okay, there we go. Okay. And you just grab hold. Remember, you do have that nut in there. That's going to want to come out. And there you go. Put that off to the side for safekeeping and continue on. All right. I'll bring you back as we're going to try to lift that hood off here. 1 second. All right, guys, here's our rig here. So I'm using my overhead crane here. I installed this well, about 1.5 years ago. I'll put a link to that video here on how I did that. But I've got this load leveler rigged up, chains basically hugging it. I've got that bolt loosened up and pulled out. I actually wound up using a small adjustable wrench to get that bad boy loosened up. I took off our oil pressure sensor connection and our terminal, I guess that would be the negative terminal on the coil. These still have some slack in them, but I'm hoping I'm going to be able to lift this thing up enough just to be able to get it up and over the top of the stacks there. So stand back. And I will show you how we're gonna do this here. All right, I may have to stop and take this cover off. I could probably do it right now. I tried doing it before with it in place, but there wasn't enough room to get my fingers up in here to stop this nut from spinning on the backside. But we'll go ahead and give this thing a lift and see what happens right here. She's tight around the stacks, but you might be able to get her. Oh, we're at our limit. I'm gonna have to go ahead and re-rig this. 1 second, I have to shorten up, lower that down and shorten up the chains. 1 second, I'll bring you back. Found something I forgot to unhook, my linkage from my radiator shifter, so I kind of bent that a little bit, but oops, oh well, I don't plan on using those anyways, so that's not a big deal. I also think right now I'm actually going to try to remove my smokestack. He gave me actually a different one because he damaged the one that he had on there pulling it out of the shed one time apparently. So I hit it with some blaster already, and you can see that one's pretty well rusted out down here anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and try to remove that bad boy. Right now, I might make this a little bit easier too. They only have one thing up here to contend with. So I'm going to go ahead and unbolt that and bring you back. Well guys, I got 2 of the 4 out, and the other 2 are seized tight. I've been hitting it with heat and blaster, and they're not budging. I actually snapped off 2 of my impact driver adapters there. So, trying a different route here. I am gonna still work to get that off, but I'm trying to make myself some room here, so I'm working on getting the intake off. So I've unbolted the 3 top bolts here, which I should have done that last, but I didn't. And I got to unbolt this here 2 because that's basically what's holding it up right now. And then that will be ready to come out. And I can pop that down. Then I can knock out any junk that's inside that intake too, because these things get packed full of mud and mud dauber's nests and dust and whatever else here too. So that'll be a big thing that's out of the way here. So let me go ahead and finish taking this off here, then I'll drop that out and then we'll see where we're at. All right, intake is out of the way. Now I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting my upper water pipe out of here. So I'm gonna take off the clamps and basically gonna cut this off. I know this thing leaks, it's rock hard and it's crumbly and everything else. So I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna actually unbolt this guy because that needs to be replaced too, and then we can get a good look up in here to see what kind of shape this guy's in, and go from there. So I'll bring you back once I got that removed. All right, well, I got that water pipe off, and I pulled it off and I tapped it on the ground, and holy cow, look at the pile of rust that was inside there. This thing is completely shot, right? Yeah, it is shot. The top pipe, yeah, it's rusty and there's still some crud in there, but there's still plenty of meat there, so I think that one's gonna be okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean that out really good. And then, I don't know, I haven't really taken a good look down in here yet. Oop. But I'm gonna go in there with a flashlight and look around and see how it looks down in there, because I'm probably gonna have to flush that out more, just seeing how much rust just fell down. And I can see there is some still still some rust sitting up on top there. So I'm gonna go peek down in there, see what I see, and then we'll come back and see about getting this upper part off the radiator here. So just give me a minute. Well, guys, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not, but let's see here. Maybe if I go around to the other side. 1 second. We got a situation. There's a good look at it. That is a nest and a big old pile of turds. So, you know, I flushed it and flushed it and flushed it and flushed it in my last video. Well, there's still stuff down there. So I'm gonna have to get in there with a shop vac and whatever else I can, try to suck out whatever big chunks I can, and then reflush this bad boy. So yeah, there's still, good thing I pulled it off. There's still a big mess on our hands down there. So we'll get to work on that. All right, so next we're gonna work on getting this top part taken off. So I've got 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there, and I believe that's it. And then that thing this should lift off. So let me go ahead and get those off. Hopefully they come out without any problems, and I'll bring you back once I've done that. So stay tuned. All right, well, I had to take a hiatus for the night here. I needed to do some reading and figure out what I actually needed to do here. So yeah, these 2 bolts needed to come out, but as it turns out, there's all these that need to come out too. Those are all holding it together. You got a whole bunch on the top, got a whole bunch on the bottom, got a whole bunch on this side, and a whole bunch on that side. So I've already taken off the fan shroud, and I took off our shutters there to have clear access there. So that's what we're up against. The problem is these things are so rusted. I've already snapped a couple of these off, so I'm trying to get my hands on a product. I haven't gotten it yet, but I will let you know when I get it, okay? I'm not going to say any more than that, because I don't know if it's going to work or not, and it might be a complete failure, but we'll see. But in the meantime, it's been 24 hours, and I pulled our clutch parts out of the evaporust and rinsed them off, and it's like night and day difference. That evaporust is the real deal. It took off all of that rust on these things. Okay, so now we can work on putting that stuff back in here while we're waiting on the rest of our parts. So let me get you set up on the tripod and we'll go through that process. All right, I've already gone ahead and done my first one. So now I'm going to show you how to do the second one here. So it's pretty easy. I did go ahead and I put some grease on this shaft. I don't really know if you're supposed to, but it seems like the right thing to do since that stuff's been getting rusty and exposed to weather. So anyways, take our little barbell, dog bone, what do you want to call it here? Hopefully you can see that there's a hole right here that this sits in, basically a cup. So you're going to set that guy down in the cup. Get in as far as you can. Take this little cup, goes down, the other end sits in there, and this flat spot goes up, okay? So it's a little bit of finesse to get that in there, but if you go like that, you should, there we go, be able to scoop that cup in there, okay? Then you just take your pin, stick it through here, and there we go. That's all there is to it. And then you just put your cotter pin in the other side, make sure you bend out your ends, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the last one, and we'll show you once it's done. All right, and there we go. Everything is back together there. So now we're just waiting on our parts to come in. Yep, everything's sliding nice and easy. Now we're just waiting on our parts to come in, and we can put the rest of our clutch together. So I'm kind of stuck right now until I get my hands on that product like I was talking about for my bolts here. Still, yeah, these two are still stuck in here. I can't get those to budge. I've tried heat. I've tried penetrant. It's not working. So hopefully this other product works. So we'll give it a shot once it comes in. I did get one of the uppers to budge and come out. The rest of them, like I said, I snapped a couple off, which is going to be fun to try to extract later. Yeah, so kind of stuck for the moment. So I'll bring you back once I get either some parts in or that product in my hands. So stay tuned until then. All right, folks, we're back the next day, and I got my hands on the product that I was talking about yesterday, and I tested it out off camera just to see what it would do, and I managed to get all of those nuts off those studs without a problem, and I was able to get, if you remember, there was one stuck right here that I could not get to budge, and I was actually rounding it off. It was so stuck, couldn't get it to budge. I actually got that thing out. So here's what the product is called. I'm gonna move my other stuff out of the way here. It's called, I'm not sponsored by these guys or anything. I just wanted to give this a try. It's called CRC Freeze Off. So basically it is a penetrating fluid, but what it does is when you spray it on the nut or bolt, it chills it enough where it'll actually crack the rust. So it's kind of the same principle as heating the casting, or in this case, like in this picture, you'd heat the nut and it would expand the nut or the casting to crack the rust free. This you spray on the fastener, so you spray it on the threads right there, or you spray it on the bolt head, and it would chill and shrink that enough where it would crack it loose just a little bit, and then the penetrant would work its way up in the threads. So here's the bolt that I tried, and it's actually still cool to the touch right now, but it was cold a minute ago. So basically you take this and you spray it on there for 10 to 20 seconds non-stop. So you're using a lot of the product. I bought a bunch of cans of this just in case, but so you spray this right on the fastener, and for 10 to 20 seconds, and it chills. And like when you put your finger on there right after you're done touching it, it is cold, right? And like I said, it's probably 85 degrees in the shop right now, and this is still cool to the touch, and it's been a couple minutes since I took it out. So it does enough to chill down that fastener, and it does warn you might have to do it a couple times, which I did on this one. I tried it several times. You can see I butchered it. What I wound up doing is using a socket rocket extractor on there to get a good bite, but it did come off. Now, to put it into perspective, when the nut was first on, or the bolt was first on there, I was using a socket and I did get a tight fit, and I was reefing on it in multiple directions, and forward tight, forward tight, forward tight. I could not get it to budge. 2 rounds of this, and I got it to come out, okay, without breaking it, which is more I can say for the rest of them on there. So I've got one more left on here that's about in the same shape as this one was right here. It's starting to be rounded, so I'm gonna get my socket rocket on there, and then I'm gonna try to, well, first I'm gonna chill it down, then I'm gonna get the socket rocket on there, then I'm gonna chill it down again and see if I can't get that one to pop loose. So I'm gonna set you up on the tripod here, and you can watch the process and see for yourself if it works. So hopefully this works, fingers crossed. All right, here we go. Hopefully I can do this so you can see it. So basically, I shook up the can. I'm gonna spray it right on that bolt head for about 20 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to pound on my socket rocket, because this one's pretty well rounded off too. Hopefully this is the right size one. I might have to get a different one, but we'll see. Hard to do in a tight area here. Going on crooked. Straighten her out a little bit. Might be enough. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and hit it for another 10 or 20 seconds. Okay, give it a couple more taps for good measure. Give her a shot. Oh, there we go. She came loose. Look at that. I am thoroughly impressed, guys. I was skeptical at first, but look at that. Not quite finger loose, but it came loose. I cannot believe it after I snapped off all those other ones. Wow. I'm definitely investing in some more of this stuff. My new favorite penetrant for sure. I can, I got my hands on it right now, and through my gloves, I can feel that it is cool. Almost like I took it out of the refrigerator. It is cool. Unbelievable. You can see too, like not a little bit of the penetrant did get up on the threads, but not a lot, but holy cow, that worked. All right, we're gonna go ahead and try that out on the rest of them and see if we can get the rest of them out, so stay tuned. All right, guys, we got the top off. I managed to get 2 more bolts out that way, and that's all I needed to do. Everything else was so rusted, it just came right through. Check this out. This is all mouse nest. That entire thing was packed full of mouse nest. This thing was never gonna cool. And you come up here, mouse nest and rust. So that radiator was shot. That is so much mouse nest, it's crazy. All right, well, we're gonna get to work and do the same thing on the bottom, and hopefully we'll get the rest of this radiator off tonight here. So let me jump at that and I will bring you back. All right, folks, well, I did get the rest of the radiator off, and I have more snap bolts on the bottom there that I'm gonna have to actually drill out and use an extractor to get out. So that's gonna be a project. But truth be told, I've had to take a couple-week break on this old girl because I had some other projects in the house that I needed to get done, a couple of vacations. But in the meantime, we got some goodies. Let's hop over here on the table. So we got a valve cover gasket, because I mentioned in my other video that that was all boogered up. Got my clutch discs, I got all my hardware, new pulley brake pad, and I got a new bearing. So what I want to work on right now is getting that clutch back together, because I've still got this thing up on jack stands, and I don't like having stuff up on jack stands. So we'll work on getting that clutch back together, and then we'll get that clutch back on and reinflate that tire so we can be back on all four pieces of rubber there. So I'm going to get the workbench cleared off a little bit, get the clutch up here, and we're going to work on getting that bearing and bushing in there. So stay tuned and I'll bring you right back. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our new bushing in here on the back side here. So I got the new one. They look to be about the same size. So both ends do have a chamfer on there. So they look to be identical, so it doesn't look like one goes one way or the other. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. So I'm going to actually put a little bit of assembly lube on the inside here and on the outside here, just to make sure she slides in real nice and easy like. So we'll just give her a little dab of that. If I can get it open. Yep. Just kind of smear it around out there. Yeah, that stuff is slick. So last thing you want to do is booger up this bushing as you're, pounding it in there. All right, so we'll get her set up in the mouth there. Wipe off my fingies just because I got assembly lube all over everything. Stuff is sticky. All right, close that up. Wipe her off a little bit. And then I've got my seal driver. I picked a size that's just slightly larger than the outside diameter of that bushing there. So we're going to go ahead, try to get it straight right from the start. That's pretty good. And we're going to take our hammer and drive it home. Now there's a snap ring down there that's going to seat right up against, so that's when you know you've driven it home, once it hits that snap ring. We're going to drive this down until we get down to the surface of that gear there. Then, yeah, we're not quite all the way in yet. So we are going to take our old bushing and set it on top there and use that as a driver. And now we're all the way down to that snap ring. So that's all good and installed. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on the inside there to help make sure it slides on the pulley or the crank rather really nice once I go to put it back on the tractor. Okay, that's done. Now we're going to go ahead and flip it over and work on our bearing on the other side. So 1 second. All right, we flipped it over the other way, and here we are. So we've got 3 parts. We've got this giant washer that needs to go in first, then our bearing, and then this seal cup needs to go in next, okay? So before I do anything, I'm actually going to take this bearing and pack it full of grease. Now this does get some oil, but not a lot. So they recommend packing this bad boy full of grease before you put it in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So if you haven't seen packing full of grease, I guess I'll show you here. But it's not necessarily a fun process, but yeah, we'll show you how it is. So basically, you just take a big old glob of grease and put it in the palm of your hand. So I'm going to pump some out from my grease gun here. Okay. Use that for starters. And we just take that bearing, and you keep, yep, get you on camera here. You keep working it like this. It's hard to do with one hand here, but keep working it like this to try to work all the grease up inside here. Now I don't really have the right grease for this, it's not really thick enough, but most of the grease when you go like this and you push it, you'll eventually start seeing it come up through the holes there. That means you've got grease all the way through that system, or all the way through that that ball in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep working this a little bit, get some up in here, and try to work some more in there. I'm gonna set her down, get some more grease here on my hand. It's also pretty hot in here, so the grease is kind of thin right now, but yeah, all right, so got a lot of it worked in on that side, so I'll go ahead and work it in on this side. There. Not a fun job, but it is what it is. Alright, we got a good amount of grease in there. I mean, you can't really use too much. Yeah, actually, this is actually kind of working pretty good. Just keep packing down like this. That's pushing it in. Just like so. And now we've got a good amount of grease all the way around in there. Okay, we'll go ahead and set that down. I'm going to go ahead and change my gloves, and then I will bring you back as we're going to put that stuff in. So 1 second. All right, here we go. Now it's time to get our big washer in. I'll take a little bit of assembly lube and put it around this outer edge here just to help the situation as best I can. Should have just used that grease that I had on my other gloves, but oh well. And I do have assembly lube inside down in there. All right, so we'll go ahead and center that in there as best we can. Wipe off the excess. Now I picked the biggest driver that I have, but it's not quite as big as the outside there, but it's pretty close. We got maybe an 1/8 inch on every side, so we go ahead and hear the tone change. That means we're seated, right? Okay, so that's all the way in there. Now in goes our bearing. Okay, so now my driver is not quite as big as the outside of this bearing, so I'm going to take my old bearing, clean it up as best I can, and use that as a driver with my other driver on top of it, just so I'm not pounding down on those on the rollers themselves. want to be careful there. We're pretty well seated now. Oop. Okay. I want to go down a little bit more. There. I think I will be okay. There. The bearing is now seated down on that washer. Now, we need to take our seal. Okay, seal. Let me double check which way this goes. I'll bring you right back. 1 second. All right, seal goes like this. Okay, and like that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take our driver. Go on top again. It's just big enough. There we go. Trying to make sure I'm driving it in straight. And now we are seated against that there bearing. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and take this over to the tractor and get everything else installed. So 1 second. I almost forgot an important part. Good thing I caught myself. Almost forgot to put in my new bolts, right? So those just slide in the holes by the dogs. The end with the ears goes on the back side, and you go to the front. And then, here, I'll pull it back up so you can see there's a hole right there. A cotter pin goes through there. So go ahead and slide those through. Put in a cotter pin, bend the ends, and then then we'll be ready to go back on the tractor. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you over at the tractor. 1 second. All right, guys, we're over at the tractor, and I did make an oopadiddy. Remember that cup? I said it was supposed to go the other way. I double checked it because it just didn't seem right to me, and I actually did have it backwards, so I popped it out and flipped it back around. So now we're over at the tractor, and there's one more thing I have to do. The old inner race is still on the crank, so I'm going to go ahead and replace that. Now it's stuck on there pretty good. I've tried pounding on it a little bit to get it to move, but it ain't moving, so I'm going to have to hit it with my old friend the Dremel here and cut her open. So I'm going to work at that, and I'll show you once I get that off. So 1 second. All right, here you can see I made the cut down in there, and I actually got it to move, right? So it is moving now. I don't know, it's hard to show you with one hand, but it is moving. So I'm gonna work in and get that pried off of there. But yeah, once you get that cut down in there near the bottom, try not to cut into the crank or whatever else you're trying to do this with. But you can just take a chisel or something like that, and once it's near the bottom, and pop it a few times, and it should fracture because it's a very hard material. It should fracture, and it'll come open, you'll feel it split, and it'll move on you there. So I'll get that the rest of the way off, and then we'll bring you back. All right, there we go. We got her off. So you can see a little bit of a nick right there in the crank, but I did not cut into the crank right there. When you flip this bad boy over, you can see, whoop, you can kind of see, focus. There, once it gets down to the bottom there, you just hit it with a hammer or with a chisel, and it'll fracture itself open, and then you can get it off. So Dremel is a wonderful tool for things like that. I don't know what guys would have done back in the days of this tractor, but maybe put it in the comments down below if you can tell me what they would have done. Probably the answer is they would have just left it because, close enough, right? But yeah. So now we're going to go ahead and get our new race pounded back on, and then we will get the clutch on. So I'll show you how I'm going to put the new race on. 1 second. All right, y'all. Hopefully you can see this. So I've cleaned up the bearing or the crank surface with brake clean, and I put some assembly lube on here, and I put some assembly lube on the inside of the new race, and I've got my old race. Now, ideally you'd have something big enough that you can fit over here to pound against, but I don't have that. So you got to work with what you got, and what I got is the old race. So I'm gonna try just tapping against it here. Try to ease it on. You can see it is moving. Keep finessing it in there. You don't want to pound against the new race because you don't want to put dings in it with your hammer, obviously. So that's why we're using the old race to pound against. It's going to be kind of a finesse game, but we're just going to keep working until you get it in there. Now, if you had the option, you had the crank out, you could put the crank in like a refrigerator or something to make it cold, or a freezer. And I probably could heat up this outer race too to make it larger so it slips on easier, but we're actually making progress here, so we'll just keep working with this technique. All right, see, I'm gonna just keep working until it comes in. So you don't need to watch me do that whole thing. I'll bring you back once we're done. All right, we got her. You can see she's flush. You can see I started dinging the crank a little bit, so I actually grabbed a little punch to pound against my old race there. Something to note too, I don't know how important this is, but it probably is. There's a slightly larger chamfer on this end than this end, and on the old one, there's a slightly larger chamfer on this end than this end, so I pointed that out, same as the old one, probably to help the clutch pulley slide on easier. So, all right, now we're ready to put the clutch pulley back on. So let me get all of our parts and pieces here, and we will watch the whole assembly process. So stay tuned. All right, I think we're ready. Okay, so I've got my tire over here compressed so I can get the pulley on. I did add some assembly or some grease to the outside here, the outside of the race and everything, to make sure that this slides on good. So let's see if we can get her on. She's heavy. Oh, look at that, no problem on. Just watch out because the splines on there we go. The splines on the crank want to bind up on that cup that's in there. So we slid on good. Everything is nice and tight now. So I think actually the first thing I'm going to do is slide on my fork on the side here. Where did I put that? There it is. Okay, so I did go ahead and I already replaced my pulley brake pad on there. No big deal. All you have to do is like bend out these tabs on the old one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slide the new one on and bend it back on, so no big deal. So now I got a fresh pulley brake pad on there. All right, so again, the fork goes in like this, and it's going to interlock with, there's a big 3/8" channel on the, whoop, gotta make sure I got this the right way. Yeah, it goes like this. Anyways, there's a big 3/8" channel on the pulley there itself, so you can kind of watch it as it's going in. Come on. Sure, of course it's not going to go in easy on camera, is it? Oh. Came out nice and easy. There we go. I think we're in good shape now. Yep, I think we're right where we want to be. Okay, I got to put my 4 bolts in. Should be these fellers here, nice and long ones. One started. Get the other one down here started. Okay, bottom one going. Hopefully I'm not getting in your way here and you can see what the heck I'm doing. And we'll get our top one in. Come on. Alright, now we're just going to go ahead and crank those tight. That again is a 9/16. Now again, there's a, whoop, kicked you. You still see? There we go. Again, there is a gasket back there. Looks like mine is still in okay shape, so I probably don't have to replace it, but others of you may. And if it does start leaking, I'll have to replace it, so we'll see. But that's no big deal. You see it comes right out. Okay. Okay. Yep. And then this guy back here. Well, I'm probably getting in your way here a little bit, but okay, everybody's nice and snug now. Check one more time. Okay, let's see if I can find where my little pin is right here. I think it's in my parts bin. 1 second, I'll bring you right back. All right, I've got my pivot pin back in up here. Now I'm just gonna move the clutch to make sure it slides in and out like it's supposed to, and it does. That means I'm in the right spot inside the inside that pulley there. All right, so now let's begin the rest of the assembly. All right, so I should have laid this out in the order in which it came apart. Here, we'll move over here so you can see a little bit. So first thing that goes in is a new disc. So let's just take a look at the new disc versus the old disc. Now, hard to tell in the video there, but that new one is about twice the thickness as the other one. So those did need to be replaced. All right, so this is just gonna sit inside the pulley here with the ribbed area facing out. Okay, there's a slot in there that needs to sit in. Make sure it's in there, and it should sit there for you. Okay, next thing that goes on is our driver. Now remember our driver from my disassembly video, but I'll tell you about it now. Here, I'll pick it up and probably be able to show you. There is, where is it? Where's my mark? Yeah, there's a V-notch right there. There's also a V-notch on the crank right down here. So you need to make sure those V's are lined up because this is weighted. You see there's a bunch of stuff bolted on here. This thing is weighted on one side, and that's to help counterbalance the crank. So you need that to be in the right spot, or else you're going to have vibration issues and probably premature failure on things. So we want to make sure we get those lined up right where they're supposed to be. So in my case, come on, it's going to be right about there. All right, man, why ain't you going on? Probably because I dinged up that crank a little bit when I was doing that, putting on my race. Also, it's been a few weeks, so maybe there's a little bit of rust built up. Oop, I'm in the wrong spot. Where's my mark again? There it is. Okay. Alright, well, we're going to have to use the old Intimidator here. 1 second. The old Persuader. It hurt to spray a little penetrant on there either, just help her slide. Actually, I probably shouldn't have done that. Oh no, there she's gone. Okay. Alright, let's get her on there. Close enough. Now we can go ahead and put our nut back on. Should help drive us in the rest of the way. Use our impact, give her a couple ugga-duggas. And just double check to make sure I have that in the right spot. I think I do. Yep, V marks are lined up. Okay. Come on. Okay, give her some ugga-duggas. Alright, she's on there. Let me just pull it out. Just to see that we, yep, pulled herself right where we're supposed to be. Okay, nice and snug. Alright, now we'll just put it back in. I just wanted to make sure that my splines were out near the end there. And they are. So we're in a good position. Alright, we'll go ahead and put this bad boy back on. Snug her down. Oh, not a battery. Alright, be right back. I get another battery. Alright, fresh battery. Guess I should have checked that before I was filming, but I was using this quite a bit last weekend. Alright, we're tight. Next comes this guy. I did replace this. Here's the old one. See, we were almost down to the rivets on this one, so got us the new one. All right, so hopefully it slides right on where it's supposed to be. Yep. You want to make sure that seats good because it slides over your bolts in here, and there's a little bit of a shoulder on those bolts where the thread's end, so you want to make sure that it's in there nice and flat, which it is. Next up is this guy. No timing marks on this or anything. It just slides right over the gear on here. Okay, make sure that sits flat. And then lastly, we have our spring plate here, which has a fresh disc in it as well. Oops, I dropped the spring. So again, you want the slots to be faced out. I got brand new springs here because you know that old one was broken on it. So these kind of just thread on here and sit on there loosely. So it's a little bit of a trick to get them on without knocking them off, but you can do it. Okay, so now this guy, oh, yep, see, it just knocked that one off again. All right, so this just pushes against the back plate there, so you want to make sure that those are in place. All of you in place, yes, all right. So now this slides over our bolts. A little bit of a wrestling match. Make sure where we need to be. Looks like it. One second, let me grab a flashlight so I can see in there. Yep, we're all good. I was just making sure that the springs were in place. I couldn't really see in there in the shadows, all right? So now, I got brand new castle nuts. So we can start our castle nuts and get them down. So I'm gonna thread these on just until they're up against the that plate there, which I believe is sitting level, judging by the look of all of the, you can see there's holes in there that cotter pins need to go through in a minute, but I'm just setting it to the point where it's even on all sides with those cotter pins. Yeah. And then I'm going to thread this on so that it just lightly seats, holding that in place so it's kind of in the same spot on the cotter pins, because it's important. You want this to be the same tension all the way around, okay? You get what I'm saying? That way the clutch adjusts evenly. I think that was part of my problem before where it wouldn't adjust evenly, is that one of those springs wasn't quite right, so I couldn't never get the same tension on everything in there. So that's why the clutch wanted to keep running, even when it wasn't engaged. Ooh, we have a new glove. All right, so right now we're lightly seated, so let's just test where the clutch is at. All right, let's get the cord out of the way. Yeah, see, the clutch is moving like it should, but you want to hear an audible like pop. We don't have a pop yet, right? So we're just going to keep adjusting these in evenly until we get a pop. All right, so I'm going to go half a turn at a time here, right? So go half a turn, half a turn, half a turn. No pop yet. Keep going. Go half a turn, half a turn, half a turn. Well, keep going. So it does look like this one isn't in as far as the other ones because it's not up to the end face here. So let me just even that out quick. Might have made a sort of a tactical error as I was assembling this. All right, let's see. Yep, no pop yet. All right, we're gonna try going a full turn and just see what happens. So we might not be close to that adjustment point yet. Yep, still not popping. We'll keep going full turns until we get to where we want to be, until we start feeling tension. This is a delicate process, folks. Can't rush it. You need this to be right. Sorry if I'm boring you, but this is how it goes when you're actually doing the job. Starting to feel a little more tension on there. Yep, I'm definitely feeling more tension on the nuts as I'm putting them in. Oop. There. Still not there. Ooh, I bet you we're going to be getting close now. I'm really starting to feel tension on there now. And springs are compressing. Getting closer. Okay, so I went too far. So now it won't pop into place, all right? So now we're gonna back off half a turn. We're close. We're getting a pop, but it's not quite where we need to be. All right, so let's go. So now they say when you're close like that, you look at the castle nut and you go one notch on the where the holes go through for the cotter pins, if that makes any sort of sense. All right. So this one's kind of between. So we're gonna go ahead just a hair. All right. So that one's lined up. What about this one? Yeah, that one's kind of between also. Okay, this one is also between. Oop, back her up a scotch. What about that? How about now? Let's say one more notch, and we're probably where we need to be. Okay. Okay. All right, how about now? Try one more. Still not satisfied. That's the ticket, right? I can't, when I'm bringing the rod up here, I'll pop you off the tripod so you can see what I'm talking about here. But, all right. Before, I'd get to right here, and I couldn't force it in. Now, I have to actually get to here and pop it in, and then pop it out, pop it in, pop it out. I think we got her. All right. So, I was talking about notches, right? So, you see right here? You've got the space in between the castle nuts, and you've got where the holes are there. That's 1 notch in my vocabulary here, right? So when you're making these fine adjustments towards the end, you just turn it so that the next notch lines up with the hole, okay? And you do that all the way around. So now I can go ahead and pop some cotter pins in there and lock it in place, and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw those cotter pins in here. You don't need to see that. And then I will bring you back. All right, clutch is all together, and we are officially back on 3.5 wheels as I filled that guy back up. So that's good. Now we gotta bring our attention back over to Mr. Crusty Rusty Radiator here. So what we're trying to do is get the rest of these bolts out, and my goal here is to try to get I guess that's the bottom part of the radiator casting off the radiator. I was able to just have some success getting this snapped off bolt out, so I used a combination of that CRC freeze off and a socket rocket, if you're not familiar with those. Just basically, or rocket socket, sorry. Basically an extractor. It threads itself on. You pound it on with a hammer, it threads itself on, and then you basically crank the shit out of it. Pardon my French. So I'm going to try that for, it's not going to work on this one. This one is too short. I'm not going to get a bite on it, so I'm going to have to drill that one out, but might have enough juice on these to be able to get those out. So I'm going to set you up in the tripod and see if I can show you that process, see if it's going to work or not. So fingers crossed. Alright guys, here's how this CRC freeze-off is supposed to work. So it's supposed to spray it directly on the fastener that you're trying to remove for, it says 10 to 20 seconds, and then let it sit for like a minute and give it the old tappy as it's sitting to try to help break stuff loose. So we're gonna hit it with hit it for the 20 seconds, give it a few taps. I'll shut you off, we'll wait a minute or so, and I'll give it a few more taps in the meantime, then we'll come back and try to extract it. So let's just see how that works. So here we go, we'll give her 20 seconds. Okay, 20 seconds. Here are a few tappies. All right, I'll give her a minute. I'll give her a few more tappies during that minute's time frame, and then I'll bring you back. All right, we're back. We'll give her a few more tappies. All right, don't know if there's gonna be enough meat for this extractor, but we're gonna give her a shot. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Something tells me there's not enough meat there, just judging by it. Yep. She's slipping. Try her again and see, but I don't think it's going to happen. Well, I've got it down to the casting this time. Nope. Not going to happen with this one. Let me try the next smaller one here. I've got it handy. I don't know. That's what I had to do in the last one. Yeah, I think there's too much. Yeah, it's like in a weird size in between. So that one's going to have to be drilled out. This one might have a little bit more meat. So I'm going to try the CRC freeze-off method with that, and then I'll bring you back. All right. Well, I've got that one all set up. Hopefully there's enough meat there, but I'm kind of doubting this one too now that I've got it pounded on there. So we'll give it, yep, nope. Didn't happen. Not gonna happen. I mean, I can try the smaller one here quick since you're on camera. Nope, not gonna happen. Well, we're gonna have to drill her out, so let me set you up. Of course, the one that I tried I didn't film, and it worked. It's always how that works. So we'll drill these out. So 1 second. Well, what I wound up doing was drilling all the way through that casting, or all the way through that bolt, and then using the extractor, and I was able to get them apart. So I have the top and the bottom separated, and I've got the supports on the side separated too. So now I've got to get all that mouse nest and goo cleaned out of there. And on this one, I have a whole bunch of snapped off bolts that I have to try to drill out and get those out. So that'll be the next task. So I'll bring you back, and maybe we can try to watch one of those. So stay tuned. All right, y'all. Some time has passed. I actually had to put this project on hold for a while because I had a couple other ones going on. I actually made an epoxy river table for our basement, which I'll put a link to right here. And I also did a revival on a case tractor, a case model DI with a low loader that had been sitting for some 30-odd years. So I'll put that link right here if you want to see that one. Anyways, now we're back to the old Johnny here because winter's coming, and I got to get this guy out of the way so I can get to work on my sleds, which I'll make some content on those sleds too. So here's where we're at. Radiator is separated, top and the bottom. There was a bunch of stuck bolts that I had to drill out and tap. So I'll show you that over here. So there's a bunch over here. I still got to get this one out, but most of these were stuck, and I had to drill them out and retap the holes. Same over here. So these were studs over here. These I just wound up grinding off and then drilling right through and threading. So I'm going to put some bolts up through the bottom there to act like studs and seal them up for the bottom so they don't leak. So as of right now, I have everything ground as smooth as I can. You can see there is a bunch of pitting in this surface here. So that's not ideal, but I got a new gasket that came with the radiator, and I'm going to grab some Permatex. I think gray is the type that you can use with radiators and things like that. So I'm going to smear that bad boy up with that, get some bolts, and then start reassembly. So actually first, before I do that, I did get this as clean as I could with using a combination of wire wheel and compressed air, and I actually used the dingle ball hone, believe it or not, got down in here pretty good to help clean these things out. So that's where that's at. So I'm going to take these castings. First of all, I'm going to take inventory of what bolts I need because the majority of the bolts I pulled out of this thing are junk. So I'm going to take inventory of what bolts I need, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this stuff with some, where'd it go? Oh, I don't have it sitting anywhere near me. Some rust converting spray from Rust-Oleum, just to try to, get some of this rust to stop in here and to, protect the outside a little bit here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring you back when it's time for reassembly, so stay tuned. All right, and we're back. So I went to the hardware store and I got myself all my hardware I needed, 3 bags of assorted stuff. I got some 5/16, some 3/8, and some 7/16, depending on what I needed. Got myself a chunk of radiator hose. Now, this actually calls for 2 7/8 radiator hose. No place in town actually had it in stock. They'd have to order it in, so I got a chunk of 3-inch, which I think might be okay, but we'll see, because you can see it is kind of sloppy on there, but not too bad. I tried clamping on there with a hose clamp all the way around, and I don't see any daylight around there, so I think maybe if I double clamp it, I'll be okay. So that's what we're going to go with. Now, we're going to assemble this, and before we actually put antifreeze in there, I'm going to put water in there just to test it out, just to make sure that it's going to hold, but we'll see. All right. So first thing I'm going to do, well, you can see I also took this and I hit it with that rust converter, like I said, just a nice flat black to cover up that rust and help convert it, help protect it a little bit, so I think that went well. Over here, I've got my bottom casting set in place, so I think what I'm going to do is actually assemble this in the tractor like this, because it's going to be a lot easier to, I think, maneuver it as is like this, rather than trying to get the whole thing together and then try to get that radiator hose hooked in there. So first thing I'm going to do is get my radiator hose hooked up there, and then make sure that these mounting bolts are in the right place, and see if I can't get that thing to seal up properly there. So let me go ahead and cut myself some radiator hose. I got too much intentionally. You can see my old hoses, stay there, are a little bit short. So I'm going to cut these a little bit long intentionally, just so they slide up on the necks of the radiator parts in there a little bit better, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better seal. So I'm going to go ahead and get my bottom one cut, and then I'll get that installed and bring you back as we are assembling. So stay tuned. All right, I've got our 4 mounting bolts bolted up there, secured down. I made sure that these didn't stick through here. I even hit it with a grinder just to make sure that they weren't sticking up. So that should be pretty smooth. I'm pretty happy with the way this tightened up, I think. Can't really see in there. I won't really know until I get liquid in there, but seems okay for the moment. All right, next thing I'm going to do is take my gray Permatex and smear it all on this mating surface, because like I said, we have a bunch of pits on there from the rusting. So I'm going to make sure I get it in all of the pits and all around there, especially around these bolt holes too, to make sure that those are all sealed up. Get a nice smooth surface on there. Then I'm going to take our gasket and set it on top of there, and then our radiator goes on top of that. Now, I just double checked. It doesn't appear that the bolt holes are any different from side to side, from end to end, so it should be all symmetrical. So I don't think there's a top and a bottom. It all looks the same. So I'm just going to double check that as I turn it around and see if there's any top or bottom marks. But again, I've never done a radiator like this before, so this is my first time, so I think that's how it goes. But I'll just double check things as I'm looking around here. But we'll go ahead and get our Permatex on here and our gasket on, set our radiator in place, and then show you the next steps here, so stay tuned. All right, I've got Permatex on both sides of my gasket there. I've got my radiator set in place now, so now I'm going to start using my 5/16 inch bolts and bolting this bar down all the way across on the front and the back. So that should help sandwich everything down, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So basically we just have a bolt and a nut. That's how it was before. I didn't see any lock washers. Probably not a bad idea to put some on, but I didn't. And we'll see how this plays out. So I'll bring you back if I run into any issues. So I'm going to go ahead and get both these bars bolted down. All right, I got both of our bottom bars installed without a hitch. Then I went ahead and I did my left upright here. Now remember, you want these tabs to be pointing back towards the driver, we'll say, right? I'd be lying if I said that was a perfect fit. It wasn't. The holes here are a little bit off. They're just a little bit cocked, so I wound up having to take a 7/16 inch drill bit and pop it up through the top just so that I could get my 7/16 inch bolts through here and up. But I was able to get it, not a big deal. Now it's time to move on to the other side, where I'll probably have to do the same thing. So I'll bring you back as I'm completing that. All right, bottom half is together. No real hitches other than, like I said, the big 7/16thers didn't line up quite right. But all I had to do was re-drill the hole a little bit, or widen out the hole a little bit on our radiator here, and everything was good. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the top here. Yeah, I can see these are going to have a hard time lining up too. So I might just go ahead and wallow those out a little bit right away to make sure I line up, and then we'll continue on with the assembly process. So I'm going to do the same thing on the top with the Permatex. I'm going to smear some on this surface, and then smear some on that surface over there, so that we get a nice, good, tight seal, and then I'll bring you back once that's all together. So stay tuned. All right, folks, we're making progress. Top and bottom of the radiator is all together. She's secure, she's solid. Had a little bit of issue getting that plate in there, so I had to widen the holes a little bit. That plate wasn't from this tractor originally, it was from something else, so it was a little bit off. Like I said, I had to widen out the radiator portion on here a little bit just to get these to fit. Other than that, everything else seemed to go together pretty good. It seems pretty solid. So now we just got to let that Permatex set up so that we get a seal, and then we can start working on reassembly of everything else, right? So get my smokestack on, get my intake on. I'm going to leave my top pipe off, and I'm going to leave this off for now, and I'll show you why in a little while here. But for now, the main goal is to get everything back together so I can actually drive this puppy outside again and flush that radiator again. But yeah, so I'm gonna get back to work. I'm gonna start with this and my intake. So I'll bring you back once those are secured. All right, we've got our smokestack and our intake installed. So before I put the intake on, I figured I better just check it to make sure there's not any obstructions in there. And well, just when he thought there couldn't possibly be any more mouse nests in this tractor, that was all stuffed in the intake. So I blasted that all out of there. You can see here, I didn't notice this before, but my steering shaft is actually worn through the side of here. But we're just gonna go ahead and leave that. That's fine, because it still goes through the oil filter anyways, or oil bath filter anyways. So no big deal. All right, next thing I want to do actually is I want to work to get this back cover off here where my gauges are and my switches and things, because I do need to replace my temperature gauge up here. So I did get a new one to run down into my new thing here, just so I can monitor temperature. But these bolts are rusty beyond belief. So I'm going to work a little bit to reach up in there and see if I can't pry it off. I have them soaking in penetrant overnight, but I'm not optimistic. What I think I might have to do is grind off the bolt head here and then replace that. So I'm going to get to work on that, and I'll bring you back once I've come to some sort of a resolution there. All right, well, I got it off. Didn't know this, but these are actually slotted here, so it slides on. So once you get those a little bit loose, they'll just come right off. Wasn't aware, but that's good to know. So it'll be a lot easier to get on. Yeah, you can see this is pretty grody up in here, right? So I'm going to delete some of that wiring and put in my new temperature gauge, which is the top one there, as I'm getting this bad boy all together. All right, so for now too, because I removed that, I was able to lower the hood down in place, so everything's set where it needs to be. I need to reattach my big center bolt in there just to keep it in place. Then I'll get the hoist and the chains out of there, and then we'll move on to the next step. So stay tuned, I'll bring you back once I got that done. All right, our bolt is in place, so our gas tank is secure, at least from the back. On the front, there's still a couple bolts to go through here, but that also goes through the front sheet metal, so I'm gonna leave that off for now. Got my hoist out of the way. Now I think I'm gonna hook up my throttle linkage and my governor spring here. So basically, I think, from what I remember, this spring goes right here. This little square, I guess it's a washer, goes on there, and then I think this bolt goes right through there and tightens right up. So I think that's what I got to do there. Then I can go ahead and come up here and drop my linkage into the throttle shaft here. So that'll be done. Let's see, then there's a little bracket here. Whoop, that my choke runs through, that also bolts right here. I took that off. Yep, that's exactly where that goes. Here's my nut and my lock washer here. It's all coming back to me from several months ago. I don't remember exactly which way this one goes, if it goes this way or flipped around, 180 degrees the other way, but I'm not sure it quite matters. Seems like it fits pretty good right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, get those bolted up, and then we'll come back and see what we have to do next. So stay tuned. All right, I got my throttle and governor linkage all hooked up. Appears to be working. Got my choke in place. I got my fuel line hooked back up. Next thing I think I need to do is my steering shaft, which there's a whole bunch of parts and pieces. So yeah, there's some gooky grease up in there. But yeah, a whole bunch of parts and pieces. So we'll see if we can't figure out what needs to go where. So first thing I'm going to do is grab my steering shaft, see if I can't slide it in, and we'll go from there. So 1 second. All right, well, I had to undo basically most of what we just did here, but no big deal. It's not going to take me that long to get it back. So basically, you need to do the steering shaft at least part way before you lower this all the way down here, right? Because this little collar has to go on, and when this is all the way down, there's no way to get in here to get that thing back on. And it's kind of a juggling match too, so you slide the shaft in part way, and you have to use two hands. You gotta lift up on the shaft like this here, and then thread this on here, and then snug it all the way down. Then you should be able to slide your shaft all the rest of the way through. So that's what we're dealing with right now. So I'm gonna get that snug down, lower my hood and tank assembly back down, and then get everything back the way we were before, and then we'll see where we're at. So stay tuned. All right, so now we should be able to slide our steering shaft all the way through. Come on. Gotta go grab a rag. 1 second. All right, let's push her all the way through. Oh, sure. Now she got stuck. Probably have to come up here and twist her a little bit. There we go. All right, now once you get her all the way in, you have to then screw it in because we got that worm gear in there. It looks like we have to screw it clockwise if you're facing the front of the tractor. Man, she's a wrestling match. All right, let me see if I can't spray some lube on there. get her to slide a little bit more free. 1 second. All right, I actually took my wire wheel over here and cleaned that up. And now I'm going to take some super slick stuff and spray it on there just to help her slide through a little bit easier. All right, let's see if it helps. Oh, look at that. Just like butter. All right, turn it the right way. In. I don't think that's all the way down. What's going on here? Something's not engaging. Got my gear tooth there. Let me take a closer look. 1 second. Ha! Blooper. You guys might have caught that on camera, but up here, when I slid it through that time, it didn't go through the loop up there for the steering pedestal. It was off to the side, so it was cocked. So now it looks like it'll steer thread all the way in. See, there we go. Now she's pulling in. All right, you pull it in until it's fully seated like that. Now we're ready to put on our end cap there. 1 second. Now our end cap is all full of caca. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that out and repack that with some fresh grease. So I'll bring you back in 1 second. All right, our cap is clean. Our bearing is clean and full of fresh grease. So now all we have to do is pop her back in here. Now, these are shims in here, by the way, so that can be used to adjust your steering if things are too tight or too loose. So I don't remember if this thing was tight or loose or not, but I'm just going to leave it right as it is. Just because we can come back and, oh yeah, there's another shim on there. Dude, that one's kind of beat up, but that's okay. That's something we can adjust at a later date if we need to address it. So we got to make sure all those are lined up. I'm going to go ahead and start my bolt just to make sure that I get it through all of those shims before I press this in. There we go. Should have cleaned off the outside, but I'm planning on coming back at a later date and doing the whole thing here, so. Okay, now it's time to hop up on the pedestal and get my steering wheel back on, so I'll meet you up there. Alright, let's hop up here and see if I can't show you what's going on. Alright, so basically we've got our steering wheel, we've got a big nut, 1/16", I believe it is. Yep. A big washer and a woodruff key. So we want to start by taking our woodruff key, putting it in place. I'm going to hit it with a brass hammer here just to kind of tap her in place. Take our steering wheel. Make sure that it's in line with our woodruff key. And then we can take a big nut, or big washer, a big nut. Come on. Right, clean off those threads a little bit. There we go. And our impact, and just drive her home. Now, she steers. There's really not a lot of slop in this steering. The noise you're hearing is it rubbing on the hood a little bit. But, yeah, a little bit of slop, but not too bad. Alright, so it feels like she steers clear. Let's go all the way in one direction. Make sure nothing binds up and locks up. That would be a shame. That's good. Who needs power steering, right? That's how farmers back in the day were ripped. Okay, all the way the other way. Yep. No binding. Just straighten her out. We'll see what else we have to attach. We're getting close, guys. All right, let's see what comes up next, so stay tuned. All right, we're gonna work on our little cowl here, right? So I've got to get my temperature gauge, which is the top one, out. So I just got to loosen these two nuts, and she should pop right out the front. I deleted some of the old wiring from the charging system. That was no good anymore, just to clean it up a little bit. Still pretty nasty in here. And I noticed my light switch down here is broken, so that's no good either. But we're not worried about that right now. We're gonna take care of that at a later date. So right now I'm gonna work on my getting my new temperature gauge in there. So stay tuned. All right, temp gauge is hooked up. Well, hooked up in the cowl there. I've got the bottom kind of out of the way here because I don't have my upper pipe on yet. Don't forget your oil pressure gauge line. That was a bugger to get in there. So hopefully that one's sealed up properly. I don't have any leaks up top, but that's good. Let's see. I still need to reconnect my. I guess that's my negative on my coil, and then I need to reconnect the battery. And I think we're ready to try to test fire this thing and move it. So let me just get those hooked up, and then we will double check that's all we need. So stay tuned. All right, folks, I think everything's back together. Let's see if we can't do a test fire and drive this thing out of here and see how that clutch is working. All right, fuel on. Clutch is stuck again. Let me investigate that. Then we'll bring you back. Well, at least you fired up again. All right, guys, I played with this off camera, and here's what I determined. I figured out the problem. So there was two things. So you need to check the end play on your crank, okay? So if there's not enough end play, or if there's too much end play, it can mess up your clutch. So in this case, I don't think I had enough end play, and because the clutch discs are new, it caused me a problem. So when the clutch is engaged, it actually pulls the flywheel over a little bit, and when you disengage the clutch, it goes back a little bit, right? So because the clutch discs are new and they're thicker, the flywheel couldn't go back far enough to disengage the clutch. So you check that, by just like kind of pulling on your flywheel a little bit here, and I had zero movement. So you do it when your clutch is engaged and you pull on your flywheel, and I had no movement. So in order to fix that, you need to loosen up this bolt, and then this big old honking thing on there too. So I used a pipe wrench on this to get that loose. And then because this thing had been on there for so long and it was rusty like everything else, I just kept hitting it with generous amounts of penetrant and giving it some light taps. Now this is cast, so you don't want to beat the piss out of it, or you can crack it. So I was just giving it gentle taps, and then I started tapping in on it with a dead blow, and I saw it start to move inward. So then I started tapping the backside of it, and I got it to move outward. So the spec, I believe, is 5 thousandths end play. So I don't have a dial indicator handy right now, or at least one that's useful for this application. So I got it so that there's just the slightest bit of movement on the crank now. Okay. The other problem was my pulley brake. I didn't quite understand how this worked, so I didn't have it set properly. So I had it basically how you see it right now. So I had it way backed off so that the clutch pad wasn't touching the cylinder. And then when I'd pull back on this, you know, you'd see the clutch pad engage, but it was actually engaging the clutch because I had it set too far back. So now I take this and I screw it in to where I have that nut, and I'll tighten it up off camera, but put it to right here. There it is. Now, clutch is engaged and there's just the tiniest bit of drag on there. Now, clutch disengaged, and you can see the brake goes back and it touches. Now, when you're not touching it, it's still freewheels, but when you pull back on the lever, it's enough to actually stop the pulley. So let's get this thing outside and I'll demonstrate for you how it works and that I actually fixed the problem. So give me 1 second. All right, pardon the noise. It's colder than sin out here today, and it's really windy, and I'm outside, and my face is frozen and everything else. All right, so key on. Hopefully she starts now that I've had her out here in the cold. Hopefully you can hear me. Pulley's not moving. I release it, she drags a little bit. Put her in gear. Drags a little bit. Put the brake on and we're good. Now, put her in gear, second gear. She goes and stops. Still maybe a little tighter, maybe needed to be broke in a little bit, but it's a lot better than it was. I can even put it in. Sixth gear. She tries to go. All right, let me back her back in the shop and I'll bring you back. All right, so here's the next thing that we're dealing with. This may be a surprise to you, but the drain plug for the radiator is quite rusted. So I bought a new drain plug, and I tried to screw it in right here, and there are no threads left to be found, at least not until you get way up in there, and it's not enough for it to bite on and actually tighten up. So that's a problem. So I got a couple options here. First option is to try to rethread it with the same size pipe thread, and since it's tapered, I might be able to get enough for it to bite and seal, so I think we're going to try that first. So let me take you over to the bench. All right, so I went to the Harbor Freight and I got myself a pipe thread set. Pipe thread tap set, right? This particular thread on these John Deere's A's, and I believe B's, probably G's too, is a 3/4 inch NPT. So we're gonna try to see if we can't put some threads in there. So let me get some tools here and we'll see if we can't get this bad boy to bite and see if that happens. So if that doesn't work, we have other options, but we'll explore that if this doesn't work. So just give me a second to get set up and we'll get that going. All right, we'll see if we can film this here with one hand and laying on our back. So I actually did get the threads to bite on there, so let's just see. I don't have the proper tools to do this, so we're going to have to use an adjustable wrench here. But that does feel like it's biting. Yeah, we are cutting some threads here. Let me go get a little bit of oil and spray it on there. I'll be right back. All right, we sprayed a little lubie on there. We'll see if we can't, get her to bite and keep on trucking. Yeah, I think this is actually working. How deep those threads are going to be, I'm not sure. Sorry for the shaky camera work here. I don't really have a tripod I can get under here with, but this is what we're stuck with. Yeah, that actually feels like it's cutting threads pretty good. Maybe we might get lucky here, folks. Oh, it's getting tight. Probably making y'all seasick doing it this way. Here, I'll try to brace myself against the tractor. I'm laying on a creeper, so it's rolling me around a little bit here. Oh, come on. It's hard to do laying on your back, filming with one hand and working the wrench with the other. All right, so let's unscrew that. I mean, let's see. I mean, yeah, it's cutting material. Let's go ahead and spray that out to clear it out a little bit. And let me see if I can find our plug here. I mean, it feels like it's going. I don't know, it tightened up. I think the bolt is actually up against the casting there, so we might be okay. What I think I'll try and do is put some Teflon on there and tighten it back up like that and see where that gets us, but that might be just enough to seal it. I could always use pipe dope too. You know, you can get that back off, so that might also seal it as well. So we'll see what that does for us. I'll bring you back once it's time to actually try to put some fluid in this radiator and see if it holds fluid. All right, time for the teller of tales. I put the plug in there just with the plug, no Teflon, and I'm going to try to dump a couple gallons of water in there and see if it holds. So you watch for me. I'm probably going to spill some, so don't mind too much. Yep, we're spilling. Let's see. Whoop. Yep, it appears we're leaking, but just a little bit. So, I'm going to go ahead and get that drain back out, and I'm going to put some Teflon on the threads and see what that does for us, because it's pretty close. I've got it pretty snug, but we are leaking just a little bit. So let me go ahead and get some Teflon on there and see what that does for us, so stay tuned. All right, let's try that again. I got some Teflon on there, and we'll see if she holds. Again, I'm probably going to spill. There's not really an easy way to dump it in there, so it is what it is. But here we go. Alright, so what does that look like? Let me get some paper towel just to wipe that off, because I think there's still some residual dripping, but hold on one second. Okay, so that is much better, but we still do have a bit of a leak on there. It's just a little drip. Now, yeah, you'll probably see it forming up there. I can see it forming right here along those edges. Now, I could try a heavier dose of Teflon, and I could try putting an O-ring along the top here, or some sort of a gasket along the top here to help seal that better, which might work. And I can also try that pipe dope like I was talking to, but I think we're real close to getting this thing to seal up. So I'm gonna have to go get some more supplies, and I'll bring you back once it's time to test it out again. So stay tuned. All right, so here's what we're actually gonna try. I posted on some of the tractor forums from guys that I've posted with before that have had the same issue, and here's what the majority of guys recommend doing. Now, I've heard a plethora of things. Some guys recommended more Teflon or the pipe dope, or even using like a boat plug to put in there. I even heard a couple of guys say their grandpa used to stick an old corn cob up in there. Once it swells up with water, it seals it up and it would last for years. Or other guys even said they took a mop handle, wrapped a rag around it and stuffed that up in there, and that works too. So the most common one that I saw was this: taking a 3/4 inch reducer down to a 1/2 inch, and taking some JB weld and smearing it all around the threads and up in there, and screwing it in there as tight as you can be. Let it harden up, and then you just have a smaller hole down here. So I still have to get a 1/2 inch nipple to put in here, but that seems to be the most common way that people are doing this, and they've had good results. So that's what we're going to try here. So I'm going to go ahead and set us up here, get some JB weld mixed up, and then we'll slap it on the threads and work it up in there and see what happens. So just give me a minute, I'll get set up. All right, here we go. I'm sure most of you have seen this before, but we'll show it on film, right? We've got our 2-part epoxy JB weld, so we got to mix equal-ish quantities into a little mixing vessel here, right? So I'm going to use this little cap here. It does make quite a mess. I'm going to squeeze out quite a bit because I want to make sure I have enough. I'm getting a little bit more of the white than the black, so I got to even her out a little bit. Come on, a little bit more. I have used this on other applications before, and it does work pretty good for sealing, actually in antifreeze too. On my sled, I actually, several years ago, threw a stud through the front heat exchanger and put a pretty big gash in there. So I took some JB Weld putty and stuffed it in the gap there to fill it up as best I could, let that harden. And I took this stuff and I smeared it around the outside, and I've been running now for, oh, how many years has it been? 4 or 5 years now, and I've got about 4,500 miles on it and it has not leaked a drop. So this stuff does actually work really well for applications like this, believe it or not. All right, so anyways, I'm gonna get her all mixed up here so that it's a nice dark gray color. You don't want to see any of the white or any of the black in there, so you want to scrape the sides here. Make sure you're getting it all worked in here, real nice and good. Let's see, I've got a little bit of white over here, got a little bit of black over here. All right, we're getting there, folks. All right, that should just about do it. So now we're just going to take our little popsicle stick here and smear it all around the threads, work it down in the threads, and have it up on top and have a nice buildup so that when we screw it in, it squishes down and all around and all that good stuff there, right? So this is how we're going to do this, all right? I'll even put some up here. Can be pretty liberal with this stuff. Oh, looks like I missed a little bit over here. Now this isn't the JB Quick, this is the regular JB Weld, so you do have a little bit of working time here before it starts to solidify, so a little bit of time on your side. All right, now let's go over to the tractor and we'll show you how we're doing it over there. All right, here we go, folks. We got her up in there. I got her pretty much as tight as, oh, I can go a little bit more. Pretty much as tight as she's gonna go by hand. Oh, that's squishing up in there real nice, actually. And then we're gonna take our wrench, snug her up. Okay, and now we wait. I'll go ahead and I'm going to smear that around there with my fingers just to make sure it's all good and secure. But yeah, that's about it. Now I'm going to let her dry for a day or two, and then we'll come back and test her out. So stay tuned. All right, folks, we're back. It's been about 36 hours. I let that solidify real good, and I think we're nice and dry. So I went ahead and got myself a pipe plug. So we're going to go ahead and screw that up in there. She sticks out pretty far, but I think that's okay. There's really nothing that's going to hit it because like the rest of the casting of the tractor is going to protect it there. So I am going to go ahead off camera and tighten it up. I'm going to put a wrench on here. I'm going to put a wrench on here so I don't accidentally turn this and crack that loose, and tighten that up, and we'll throw some water back in there and we'll see if it stays. So just give me a minute and I'll bring it back. All right, you can be my eyes and see what you see. I'm going to actually try to use a funnel this time so that it doesn't spill as much, but I don't know. It's not a good angle in here. But we'll see. See, nothing so far. Dump a little bit more water in there. All right, let's have a gander. Oop, we're getting a little bit of drippage there. All right, let me go ahead and grab my wrenches and see if I can just tighten her up a little bit. I'll move you out of the way so I can actually reach in there a little bit. Just the tiniest little drip. Let me see if I can determine where it's coming from though. I think it's actually coming from the threads here, not from my plug up there. Not from my reducer up there. So let's go ahead. Oh, tighten that up a little bit. Okay, how's that? And go ahead and grab a rag and see how that looks. 1 second. Alright guys, I tightened it down. It's been a few minutes. I can see just the tiniest bit weeping out of there. So I think when I actually do this for real, I'm going to put Teflon on there. And I'm going to do another test before I actually put antifreeze in here. So yeah, I think that is going to work. So that's kind of a big relief. And now we can start moving forward. Alright folks, that's actually going to do it for this video. This has been quite a bit of content so far, ripping that radiator apart, getting it fixed, getting that clutch all put back together and getting it working. In the next video, we're going to work on cleaning out that cooling system of all the rust. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do there. I actually ordered a product that hasn't arrived yet, but I figured this would be a good stopping point. So hopefully you enjoyed so far. Please like and subscribe, keep this sort of thing going, and until the next one, we'll see you later.